Right. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's 12:06 p.m. I'm going to just give a quick overview of our agenda here. Uh, First on the agenda, we're going to have an overview of Vision Zero. Our City of Laredo Traffic Director, Danny McGee, and our Chief of Police, Claudio Trevino, will be speaking. Then we're going to do an overview of the Laredo Health Department Obesity Prevention Program as it relates to active transportation activities. And we have Ms. Cristina Duarte from the Health Department here. She is the Chief of Health Education and Promotion. Did I get your title right, Cristina? Yes. And we have just one discussion item talking about the 10-year network that was proposed in our active transportation plan that was recently adopted in February. And then we'll just go over announcements, and we'll have an open forum if any members want to bring up any issues related to active transportation. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next item. I'll stop sharing my screen, and we'll welcome Mr. Danny McGee of the City of Laredo Traffic Department and the Chief of Police, Mr. Trevino, will be giving an overview of Vision Zero. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow them to share their screen.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Danny McGee, City Traffic Director. Chief, did you have your own PowerPoint to share?
No, I don't. We're
Okay.
gonna go with what we discussed with you.
Okay, great. All right. Can everyone see my screen right now? You should see a screen that says agenda. Okay. What I plan on doing, and if anybody has any questions, just please stop me as we go along. I'll keep this informal. But this is a presentation that FHWA gave the city and the MPO a few years ago. So all the credit for the PowerPoint goes to them. We just repurposed it and updated it to suit the numbers that we have these days. So give them the credit for the PowerPoint. And then after that, the chief and I will discuss what we've done in the last year or two and what we're planning to do. We've been getting together and discussing, and then we have a plan of how we're going to move forward, because formally the Vision Zero hasn't done a whole lot in Laredo, but we have been doing things that contribute towards it. So we'll discuss those things at the end, but feel free to ask any questions. Let me see if I can get this PowerPoint going here. Can you guys still see it?
Yes.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, all right. So first of all, I'll describe what Vision Zero is, if I can get this thing going here. All right. So these are the things we're going to discuss. What is Vision Zero, what the principles about it, how it works, the practices, and then any of the resources that we can look into. In a nutshell, Vision Zero is a movement that started in Europe a few years back, and it caught on here in the US, the concept of it. And basically what it says is that not even one life is acceptable. For those of you that are familiar with how engineering is done in the US for years and years and years, is you kind of pick the point of what a safety factor is, how many people you can realistically keep safe and that kind of thing versus how much something costs. For example, a car, we buy it for $30, $40, $50,000 these days. It could be made to people at the point where nobody would die in a car, but it would cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, but nobody could afford that. So engineering is always about compromises. Well, in this movement, they said, we're not going to make any compromises. No loss of life is acceptable, which is the top thing you see there. The other major foundation that they base this on is that everything is preventable if you just got to look. And then we also recognize that people will make mistakes. So sometimes we take the attitude, well, we design it for most reasonable people, and then the people that don't want to be reasonable, they take their lives into their own hands and say, well, and that's in Vision Zero says, no, if we know people are going to make these dumb mistakes, then we need to design for it. The whole thing does make everyone more aware. It has to contribute, but it is more expensive. So that's where the city has to make the decision. We are going to be a Vision Zero city, or we're not. And the city of Laredo decided that we're going to. And I believe they passed it in early 2019, right before I came before the city. So at that time, there was only like 3 or 4 Vision Zero series, and we're up to double digits now, if I believe if I'm right. Let me go down to the map. Here you go. There is a national coalition, and you can read through those points I just made for yourself if you want to. These are some numbers that I guess were shown by FHW to show what the numbers are across Texas. I think everyone points that date. If you see November 7th, that's a date that the state of Texas has not gone without having at least one fatality. I'm sure you've seen TxDOT approaching those numbers. You know, there's been a few days where only one person died, but there hasn't been a single day where there hasn't been a traffic fatality in all of Texas. Okay, so that's what we're trying to reach is that day where there are no deaths. TxDOT has their own, I guess, their own movement towards that, but they didn't call it Vision Zero. They call it Road to Zero. So they have a commitment to it also, but they're using their own criteria. If I'm flying through this, kind of let me know if I'm going too fast. I can slow down a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. These are the Vision Zero cities that we have in Texas. Well, nationwide, but the city of Texas, you know, all the way from Denton down to Laredo on the I-35 corridor. Then we have areas around Houston, Corpus. So as you can see, the movement is catching on. You know, when I first got here, it was 3 or 4 cities, and now we're really growing. So the movement is something that other cities are recognizing that they want to, you know, protect their citizens. So it is a commitment. Okay, that's just a close up of the Vision Zero cities in Texas. You can see you've got San Antonio, San Marcos, Austin, Fort Worth, Denton, Dallas, Arlington, Harris County, Houston, Corpus, and Laredo. Okay. The reason I bring these up is because every month we meet with these cities online and we discuss what everyone's doing. You know, like for instance, San Antonio has a big concentration of pedestrian crossings. Austin lowered their speed limits in their neighborhoods to 25 miles an hour in the residential areas. Fort Worth is doing a lot of things. They're really data driven, and that's what we're trying to get to. I kind of joke with them that we're kind of just the leeches at this point. We're just trying to hang on to see what they're doing that we can bring down to Laredo. Now, however, that doesn't mean we're not doing anything. We just have our own ideas and we haven't formalized a plan, which is where we want to get to. Okay. These are some of the things we talked about in the beginning. The key to this is that we need to recognize what our citizens are doing. If they're speeding, we got to design for speeding. If they're going around a curve and not taking into account, then we're not going to say we're going to put up a sign and you take care of it. We got to make that curve more forgiving. So you can see where the commitment involves a lot more money. It's not just putting up a sign and telling people you're responsible for what you do. Well, it may be on purpose or it could be just error, but we got to design for it. Okay. I'm kind of being redundant here, but that's what that bullet point is. The top one, it says that safe systems are more important than influencing behavior. So we can tell somebody over and over and over, don't do this, don't do that, don't speed, don't do this. But everyone gets distracted. Everyone's, you know, have a million things to do in the car, and they got kids and thoughts about work, etc. So we're all human, and that's what Vision Zero says. Even for that one safe driver that is always doing the right thing, he's going to have that one lapse in judgment, and the system needs to be designed for it. Okay, and as you can see, the next bullet point is kind of a catch-all, but it shows that the city of Laredo, when they committed to being a Vision Zero city, they committed all the departments. For instance, the chief is here. You know, it involves law enforcement, it involves engineering, it involves education. So the PIO needs to be involved. We got, you know, our own forces need to be involved as far as like utilities and public works. When they're working on the road, they need to have the right signage and traffic control so that the driver that is coming onto the lane closure doesn't do the wrong thing as there's sometimes we just use a couple cones, and we need to recognize that we can't be doing that. So it's a matter of always doing the right thing, because we know the drivers may not. And as you can see, it's going to involve a lot of departments, and then that's something we're going to talk about in a minute when I come down to what the city is going to do. Kind of the same thing. Like I said, it talks about that we need to have education. We need to be looking at what our standards are. Recode Laredo is one of the things that lends itself towards Vision Zero. How we design our neighborhoods, that kind of thing. We can't have the police, on every corner watching speed. So sometimes we have to design the neighborhood so that we don't have to be doing that. We need to be more data driven, and the chief's department is really, really good at that. And they're supplying the statistics that we need to know what things to work on. And as we don't have enough money to work on everything at one time, we do want to get there eventually, but we're going to see where we need to be starting at. What are our major concerns? Where are most people getting hurt, killed, incapacitated? Where are they getting the most tickets? That kind of thing. Okay. And that's I guess I'm ahead of every slide. Sorry about that, but this just repeats that, is that we got to be data driven. We got to have the leadership behind us. Well, when city council voted that we were going to be a Vision Zero city, they committed that leadership. Okay, so it's not a matter of will we get support. No, it's already been voted on that the support is there. Okay, implement what works. That sounds a lot easier than when I say it, I guess, than to do it. But sometimes we do something because we're all excited about something new, but then 3 or 4 years later we forget why we were doing something. So we can't let the numbers say, okay, we had 20 pedestrian accidents on this road, and now we're down to 3 or 4. Well, that's good enough, and we won't continue the practices there. No, we got to remember why we got there in the first place. Okay, and the last one, that's kind of a cliche. The safety needs to be our highest priority. We say that, but a lot of times, for the sake of expediency, for getting a project out, for the sake of saving a few dollars, we say safety is a priority, but we actually make it number 2, 3, or 4, depending on what's driving it. And we always have to make sure that that is the number one thing. Whether it's the safety of the public, safety of our employees, safety of the contractor, every life counts. Okay. We're talking about champion here because we want to make sure that we have people dedicated to be thinking about this every day. We all get very, very, very busy. Sometimes we let things slide. We're all human also, just like the way the drivers are, and they're going to let their guard down. And we could easily let other things get in the way. But we always have to remember that we need to have Vision Zero designed, enforced, education, all that as part of our everyday. So we want to set up some champions to do that, to remind us and to always keep pushing forward on that. Okay. The last bullet point there is something I'm going to concentrate in a minute as soon as we finish the PowerPoint, is develop an action plan, because that we don't have a formal one yet, and I'll describe that in a minute, how we're going to be working with PD and the other departments to get to that. Am I going too fast through all those things?
No.
All right. These I won't go over too much right now. It's really a lot of this, just more, I guess, details of what we're talking about. The key one in the very bottom is to be transparent. We have to make sure that everything we do, we share with council, share with our civic leaders, share with our own departments why we're doing these things. We want to get that buy-in, not just do something because engineering feels it's, traffic engineering feels it's the safe thing to do. But if other people don't understand why we do something, for instance, the police could be out enforcing something. I've heard all these people say, well, why aren't they doing this street over here instead? And that kind of thing. Well, we want to show that certain street is one of the, the highest crash rates things. So we want to be more and more transparent, more and more obvious, more out and visible to the public. And I think that's something that we haven't done a good job of in many respects, not just Vision Zero. Okay, I'll skip this for now. Data driven. You heard me say that a few minutes ago. I have a very small staff here, a very small budget. The chief doesn't have enough officers to put them on every corner where we get complaints every day. So being data-driven is where we need to be. For instance, we get complaints all the time, and the chief hopefully is nodding his head, but that there's a certain street that people are speeding. Well, sometimes I'll go out and take counts, and it's one person that speeded at midnight. But because someone saw it, and they tend to use words like everyone is speeding, that kind of thing. With the limited resources we have, we need to make sure that those things are applied across the board and that they help, not just someone's perception. Anything you want to add on that, Chief?
Yes, we get a lot of those calls from the public, from City Hall, receiving calls from the public on this misperception or this. I mean, it is an exaggeration, but while it may be seen by me as an exaggeration, the public sees it as a priority. It's their street, their block. So we do have contact. We do contact the complainants. We explain the process. We work with traffic safety to conduct any type of study with speed or any other study that might be necessary to bring some kind of resolution to the complaint. We don't totally blow it off. I mean, we do have to respond to the callers. So we are in constant communication with those people calling, and we constantly try to explain the process, that it would not be immediate. It's not as easy as just parking a unit there at the corner to bust that person. We've had contacts with the actual people that are creating the problem in that neighborhood to try and solve it. So we take different approaches. It's not a each case is individually complicated, but we do reach out to everybody that calls. We try and make that contact ourselves, or traffic safety makes that approach. So we will continue to work in that way.
And I mean, especially being, I guess, stressing the fact about being data driven, because for many of you work for the city, many of you see the problems. We have to make sure that we don't tap our resources on things that are just particular to a very small section of town or a very small group, that we're data driven, because we do not have the resources to be everywhere, to fix every street. So until we get to that point, we have to pick and choose what we're doing. So that's goes back to the being transparent. It kind of cuts the other way too, is that we can't be reacting just to people's perceptions. We have to say, okay, if there really is a problem on this road, let's just look at it. And then if it turns out there isn't, we need to move on and not allow the perceptions, the politics to dictate what we do, because we can spend a lot of money on fixing one road that had very little problems, and then we disregard one that has higher problems. Okay. Earlier, you heard me mention, it always comes down to what we call the 3 E's: engineering, enforcement, education. And that's what we're going to be concentrating on. As we could try and engineer our way out of all accidents, but we don't have enough money for that right now. Enforcement, same thing. You know, it doesn't create goodwill between all the city departments and stuff to go out there and enforcing every single parking, speeding, moving vehicle violation. You know, we need to enforce the public, I mean, educate the public to let them know why we want them to park a certain way, why we don't want them to go 45 into 30. We have to change behavior. The whole point isn't to catch people doing wrong, but we do need to design for the times that they don't do what they're supposed to do. So that's the whole point of the Vision Zero. These are just examples of things that we're doing here in Laredo: roundabouts, pedestrian hybrid. We don't have any in town yet. We have one that's been designed and constructed on Bartlett. We've been hesitant about turning it on, but we're getting to the point where we may have to. What it is it's a pedestrian beacon that's actually dark. A pedestrian comes up to it, he pushes it, and then the lights flicker on and go red and green and that kind of thing for the driver. But it takes a lot of education. That's the reason we haven't really implemented. It's also, in my opinion, not in the best part of town, but it's what we have to work with. We're trying to connect two trails that cross a major road. So we're gonna have to do a whole lot of education with that and a lot of enforcement. Okay. Road diets are what you've seen. I think the first one, maybe that was done on San Bernardo, when we went from 4 lanes, 2 lanes each direction to 1 lane each direction with a center turn lane. And another example is Bartlett here on the old Air Force Base area. We did recently a one on Springfield. So you can't do them everywhere, but you have to pick and choose where you're trying to do a certain thing. So that's where the engineering comes in. Speed management. Earlier, you heard me say that Austin decided to lower all the residential speed limits down to 25 miles an hour. I'm sure that the chief can tell you we catch people going 40, 50 miles an hour residential streets. But it's a way of catching people's attention because it kind of 30 miles per hour is kind of the default in the whole town, and people get used to it. So if we show that one road is 25 and another one's 35, another one's 40, 45, it catches their attention more, that they just can't be ignoring speed limits. They need to be aware of what they are. Always need to be cognizant that the speed does matter, and then we'll be working with the courts on that kind of thing to make sure that we enforce those things and that they're adjudicated properly. Safety, we talked about that. That's the whole point of this. Long range plans, that's what you guys are doing on there, the recode. That's why it's very, very important that we don't continue designing our streets, our subdivisions, et cetera, the same way. When we know we have problems, everything that we look at on the recode needs to be taken into account with safety. The street design policies, standards. I mean, that could be from anything from illumination to the sizes of our curves to where we put sidewalks. For instance, TxDOT on the loop, they put the shared use path away from the back of curb. Who wants to walk next to a car that's going 60 miles an hour when you got a little curb dividing you? So those are the kind of things we look at. These are some further resources. If anybody wants to look into it, just email me and I'll send it out to you. But there's a lot of data out there, a lot of websites that give you more. But that's something we're using as I guess as a helping hand to us. Those in the cities that became Vision Zero cities. Let me stop sharing real quick. Okay. As to what we're doing now is, back in 2019, several departments met and started to formalize a plan for Vision Zero here in Laredo. As far as I know, that's as far as they got. There was no plan. They just came together and I guess, decided that was the group that was going to be going on. And then COVID came around and we never really got back on that. So we're back at the point where we do want to formalize that. We got a list together of the different departments that we're going to include, from PD to the health department to the PIO to engineering, traffic engineering, planning, et cetera, et cetera. So the next few weeks, we're going to be starting that. And we do want to formalize a plan of what the things we're going to do. Now, even though we didn't have a formal plan, since I came on, for instance, I don't know how many of you knew that we had done a strategy to start enforcing parking regulations in the neighborhoods. From what I knew, that had never been done before. We have a parking division and they were dedicated to giving parking tickets downtown. But as you go out to the neighborhoods, you would see cars that were parked the wrong way, which, is illegal, but it's also unsafe. We had, we get a lot of requests at the city for sidewalks, but then we would build new sidewalks, and what would we do with them? Anybody have a guess? We park cars on them. Yeah. So a pedestrian comes around and he's walking down, he's going to go to his mailbox or he's going to go down to the nearest park, and he's walking down the sidewalk and he comes across 5 or 6 cars in a row. So where does he have to walk? On the street. And I've got pictures where I'm out giving tickets, and I see a nice little older lady, and she's walking down with her mandado in one hand and a cane in the other one, and she has to walk around a big monster truck parked on the sidewalk. And I'm talking about into a very major street. So those are the things that people need to start recognizing. I see why people do it. When you park cars on both sides of the streets in residential, how much space is left over? I'm sure in each of your neighborhoods you see where two cars are approaching, what has to happen? One car has to let the other car in, right? All right, so that's why people do it. They park on the sidewalk, but they don't realize that they're making pedestrians go out into the street. So we care more about a mirror that gets broken off the side of a truck or a car or a scrape than we do about people walking on the street. And many of you may know that I used to be with TxDOT many years ago. Well, one year we had the FHWA come down because Webb County as a whole was nationally known to have one of the highest pedestrian rates for deaths in the whole nation. A lot of those is just people just coming out between cars downtown, different neighborhoods. But we had one of the highest crash rates, pedestrian mortality rates. So that shows that it is a big problem. I won't take the chief's glory on this, but tell them where we were crash-wise 2-3 years ago. We went from 32 accidents to what, Chief? The killed?
Yes, so like mentioned, Danny's talking about the enforcement part of the 3 E's that he mentioned. Back in 2018, I saw this as a problem when it came to the traffic enforcement. Public safety is not only putting away criminals, but also creating safe streets for everybody here in Laredo. So in 2018, we had over 30 fatalities on our roads, which was completely out of hand. And it became one of like a norm, like we're going to go to another fatality accident. We need to assign people to take fatality accidents instead of attacking it from the other angle to say, how do we prevent fatalities? So we changed our approach. We work with TxDOT, the same formulas that TxDOT uses to give grants out to departments, identifying hotspots, what causes are attributed to these accidents, and how do we curb that number. So in 1 year, we're able to lower the fatality rate better than 50%. In 2019, we had, I believe, 16 or 17 fatalities from 30 something the previous year. And then again in 2020, we reduced it another 10%. So we're doing good. We are again working with those TxDOT funds to be able to put more officers on these roadways that are identified as hotspots. So not only do we do that for our grants, submissions, we identify those hotspots with the data, but week to week, on a weekly basis, we're putting reports together to guide our officers, our traffic enforcement, motorcycle officers as well, to attack these hotspots within that 1 week period. We saturate areas. For example, one week, the data can tell us that Clark McPherson is the hotspot for accidents. So the following week, we saturate that area with more presence, and then the following week now it's Guadalupe and maybe Shiloh. So we work it that way. The ones that are the constant, that we put on the numbers, it's the Loop, Mines Road, and McPherson. The new one that came on the radar, it's 359. 359 has grown. I mean, the residential areas in that area have grown drastically over the last 2 or 3 years and continue to grow, with one way in and one way out on 359 feeding to the Loop. So we're again working with traffic safety, addressing these issues with management and council members, identifying the problem. We need more access, alternate access to these subdivisions, these neighborhoods, and that's coming online soon. So again, working with the engineering side, we're always in contact with as well with TxDOT, trying to approach other issues. Lighting on Cuatro Vientos, for example, was identified as an issue. They're trying to help us out with that. Because of the projects that they have, for example, on the Loop, close to the airport, close to the arena, we identify those as hotspots, but then they have projects that are 2 or 3 years into the future that they're saying we don't address it now because it's going to be addressed throughout the term of the upcoming project of controlled access highway build outs. So we're constantly looking at that, constantly working with other little things that may come up. Another area of priority that we give is to the access to the parks. We have over 100 parks in our city, and we need to try and keep all these parks safe. So we're always looking at the approaches to these parks, the lighting, maybe pedestrian crossings. I know recently we had a meeting with traffic safety with Danny, Mr. McGee here, international and North Central Park. We need to give access to pedestrians coming out of the neighborhoods. We tell the public, use your bicycle, go on foot to your parks where they're built in that way. And yet we also have to look at how they approach these parks and how can they safely traverse a road like International safely. So we're looking at those options. But not only, like I said, not only there on North Central Park, we have many other parks throughout the city that we're looking at. And then issues that come up with pedestrian accidents. Pedestrian accidents continue to be something that we're looking at. It continues to be an issue, but it's not only the drivers that are responsible for these accidents. Sometimes the factors contributing are pedestrian being distracted. They're out there with their phones. They're out there crossing in between vehicles. They're running into the roadway. So we use a lot of the PIO, our PIOs to put out awareness messages to try and address these issues and keep everybody safe. So the other one is bicycles. Bicycles, we still have issue with accidents involving cyclists. So we need to continue this conversation. I see Fernando here on the call. I don't know where these meetings, Fernando, I don't know if you can chime in. We used to have these meetings with Dr. Gonzalez and George Augild. We used to put these lunch meetings together. Are those coming back? Are we going to be continuing to have these meetings?
Hopefully they are, because actually there was another cyclist involved accident on a public road Monday night. They called me right away. It was by Zapata Highway or one of those small areas. This lady just didn't see the guy, and just raise more awareness. And hopefully we can schedule something, besides the MPO, get together maybe a smaller group and work on that we can just bring to the MPO for the monthly meeting.
Yeah, because on those meetings, I remember we used to coordinate different days of especially on the weekend, Saturday mornings, those long rides along Mines Road, and inviting maybe the constables to help out with escorts and PE. So we need to continue to do that because we do have a lot of, I've noticed, and we've on our reports, it shows that we've had there's a growth in the cyclists out there. It is a sport that is very popular and growing. So we need to make sure that we continue to not only educate, our cyclists. Obviously, we need to educate them, but educate the public that they're going to be seeing these groups of cyclists. If you see one cyclist struggling to get up the hill, and then you pass them, expect another 2 or 3 groups ahead of him because they're not traveling by themselves. They're in dozens or maybe even more than a dozen. So those type of things we can use our PIOs to do awareness messages.
Yes, the sport became popular once the pandemic started because all the gyms closed, so everyone became a cyclist. And some people had bikes, they got on the bikes again. Some people discovered that they had a talent for cycling and they just, stopped going to the gym and became cyclists. So we have about 40% more cyclists now than we had 2 years ago. That's how much it has grown. And yes, we sometimes ask our constables for assistance, but I'll keep doing that. And yeah, that would be a lot of help if they can help us on the long rides. Those are usually on Saturdays and Sundays only, and early in the morning when we have less traffic.
And we have several dozen, probably a good dozen or more officers that are involved in that sport. So when we have these meetings, we'll make sure we invite them. We have a
Okay.
whole bike patrol downtown that I think Sergeant Baker used to be the one taking lead on this. So we'll continue to have these meetings. Let us know if something gets organized, and we'll continue to have
Thank
these
you.
meetings.
We will. Thank you.
So yeah, Bike Laredo used to meet once a month, and basically we're using that time now with Bike Laredo, this active transportation committee that came out of Bike Laredo. So we've been meeting once a month. It's still been virtually. We're hoping soon to go back to in person. But I like that idea of like having a smaller group to meet to go over those specific concerns. I think that's a good idea.
Absolutely. So, Mr. McGee, I don't know, did I miss anything? Another thing, I guess, Mr. McGee, that we can announce is that we have police and traffic safety department are committed to the safety of our streets. We have established monthly meetings to discuss issues that need to be coming up, issues that we need to be presenting to management and to be presenting to groups like this group we're meeting here today with. So we'll continue to have that communication amongst our department to make sure we're on the same page and working towards the same goals.
Actually, that's a good segue. Well, to summarize this all, but just to, even though we haven't had a formalized plan, we've been doing individual things in departments, but we do need to get that formal plan so that the whole city's committed behind it, and that we're all going in the same direction. That there's buy-in from all the stakeholders, the public and our own council members, city management, and all the different department heads. That we need to make this an everyday decision of how to incorporate safety into our projects, into our way of life. We just have to formalize it so that the commitment is there. So that's kind of in a summary of what I wanted to share today. I know I kind of flew through the presentation, but if anybody has any questions, ask now or call me privately and we can discuss anything, any areas of concern.
Thank you, Mr. McGee and Chief Trevino. We really appreciate this. This was a really good overview. Like you all mentioned right now, even though there's not a formal plan, there's things that are being done. And with the stats that the chief shared, we're seeing that there's progress being made, right? And I think some things that's key takeaways, it's just the fact that we need to collaborate. So let the MPO know, however we can help too with our planning staff, maybe help you put that action plan together, or whatever we can help with. That's what we're here for. The data-driven part, I think that's real important. So also wherever we can help with that effort, and then yeah, whatever we can do to help with those efforts. And I know you mentioned the access to the parks. That's something that we had also recommended in our active transportation plan. So that's definitely something that I think is a high priority, right? To make sure that we're providing safe access to our parks. Like you mentioned, a lot of it has to do with education too, and educating both the driver, the cyclist, the pedestrian. So if there's any way that you feel that the MPO can be a resource, please let us know. We do have staff available where we can maybe look at data, help you collect data, help you put together an action plan. So please keep us in mind for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And likewise, if you guys are working on any type of report, any type of any project, let us know if there's any way we can help you guys with any type of data as well.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that presentation. So yeah, I hope you all continue coming to these meetings. So we often have these, these discussions about different active transportation priorities. So hopefully you all will continue coming to this meeting. Thank you for joining. We'll be moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is an overview of the Laredo Health Department's obesity prevention program as it relates to active transportation. We have Ms. Cristina Duarte here from the Health Department to give an overview of her program and how it relates to active transportation.
Awesome. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Cristina Duarte, as mentioned, from the City of Laredo Health Department Obesity Prevention Program. I do also oversee our health education division, many different grants under this division. I did want to start off with saying that approximately 25% of U.S. adults are not active at all. Physical inactivity is common among women, more women than men. I'm sad to say. According to the Texas Medical Association, collectively 33% of the adult population in Laredo and Webb County meet the definition of obesity, and a further 38% are at risk of developing obesity. So this is why we do what we do here at Laredo Health. Reducing morbidity and mortality related to overweight and obesity continues to be a public health priority, such so that there are many programs that are dedicated to reducing chronic comorbidities through prevention and health promotion. Here at the health department, under our obesity prevention program, we also provide disease self-management classes and do many activities through promotion and health education when it comes to being physically active. And you might be asking yourself, how does this tie in? Well, DSHS did award us additional funding to support active transportation in our community. It was a small award, however, something is better than nothing. And I've been working very closely with the MPO, and we worked with Bike Laredo in the past when Mr. Richard Chamberlain was the Chief of Health Education, in establishing some strategies and how we can improve the lives of our residents and how we can, most importantly, improve quality of life here in Laredo. So we're able to support establishing new or improving pedestrian bicycle or transportation systems. We are also, some of our strategies also include new or improved land use or environmental design, such as hike, bike, and walking trails. I know that it's been mentioned before, and from hearing the conversation, education is much needed in our community. You can count on our support, just like I've told the MPO is count on us for anything that you all may need. Count on health, any future projects, events that you all would like to move forward with. We would be more than happy to assist with. And most importantly, I did want to share that Laredo Health does have a large following. I know that the city of Laredo social media sites do have a larger following. However, if you wanted us to share anything on your behalf from anything that you're working on, by all means, you can send that to me. I'm also the PIO for the health department, just an FYI. And just in a nutshell, we just want to improve the lives of our residents. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem, Christina. Thank you. Yeah, we've been working closely with Christina at the health department. They do a lot of great things, and she's really good at marketing the programs that they have, and doing the PR for that. And she's been helping us too. She's been giving us a lot of advice on that, how we can improve our own promotion activities. But yeah, there's a lot of ideas that we have that we've been talking about. So hopefully in the coming months, you'll see more of that. Just thinking about ways of how to, promote these active transportation trails that we have, the different, parks and things like that, and just the activities that we're doing. So we've been talking about how we can do a better job of that, and maybe better job of wayfinding. So we've been talking about collaborating. We've been doing that, and hopefully, we'll do more of that. So in the coming months, hopefully, you'll see more of more things, and we encourage you all to also give us ideas. And so we're here for. I don't know, you wanted to add something else, Christina, but I know that we've been talking about a lot of different ideas, but I know there's a lot of things that keep coming up, right? But hopefully, pretty soon, we'll be able to implement some of these ideas that we've been talking about.
You have summarized it perfectly, Juan. Yeah, so we're going to be working on some initiatives, or hopefully trying to promote our trails specifically. I was talking to Juan and telling him that most of the time, our residents just don't know where the trails are at, and we want them to be out and be active. So maybe we're going to be creating some maps to hopefully have level of intensity, of course, where they're located, how many miles, etc. So that's what we've been working on in the background, but we hope to share that at maybe the next meeting.
And we look forward to working together on that. So thank you very much, Christina. Appreciate your time. I know we have a section for announcements. Someone send me Mr. Juan Perez. If you're going to stay through the end of the meeting, we can provide your announcement at that point. It's an event they're having. Let me see. I can mention how they're planning to host the League of the Cyclist Instructor Seminar, and they need at least 8 people to join so they can host the event in Laredo. It's a major advantage because it will save people money on hotel and other traveling costs. So if anyone's interested in joining, you can contact Mr. Bettis. I believe he sent the chat. He sent only to me, but Mr. Bettis, do you mind me sharing your email on the chat box?
Yeah, no, I don't mind.
Okay. And if you have more details, you can email me after, and I can email the entire group. You can do that.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Again, thank you, Christina, for the overview. I know you have a really good program. It goes, active transportation goes a long way in obesity prevention. Those are some stats that we cited in our active transportation plan. That's part of what we want to do is we want to help the community become healthier. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. It's a discussion item. I know we're a little bit limited on time. I'm going to share my screen. And we'll start this discussion. We want to talk about prioritizing the bicycle projects within our 10-year network that we proposed in our active transportation plan. Can you all see my screen already?
Not yet.
Sorry, it's missing one little step. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so we're talking about just prioritizing these projects. I just want to initiate the conversation. Like I said, we probably don't have enough time today, but we can continue at the next meeting. But just so we can start thinking about this, I'm just going to share a map with you all. This is the map of our network. You see right here, this is our existing bike trails right now, right? So it's, we have some off-street trails, on-street trails. The Santa Maria one isn't here yet, is that we did this map before that was completed. When you go to proposed projects with the 10 years, that's already there. That one's been it's been worked on, but we've been talking about prioritizing the next one. So everything you see in blue is your existing bikeways, and this dark yellow or orange gold color is what we're proposing in the next 10 years. So there's some priority ones that we've been talking about just because of, we want to improve connectivity, right? That was a priority of the plan. So there's an off-street path here on Zacate Creek along this blue one, as you see, and then you have the Santa Maria bike lane now. So one route that we were proposing to prioritize was this Chicago Street, and maybe doing that as an on-street route, but with protected barriers, so it's safe for the cyclists. So we're thinking of that being one of the top priorities, and just looking for connections. I know right now they're working on this one right here, which is an off-street trail from Anna Park to LC campus. And then there's another connection down here that we think is going to be very important. Is you have the Zacate Creek off-street trail, and then you have this blue right here, the Chacon trail. But if we are able to connect this through off-street Zacate Creek to Chacon, now you're able to go from South Laredo further up into like Central Laredo. And then if you do this Chicago connection, you can go all the way to North Laredo. So we think this connection right here is very important, should be a priority. So that's one thing that we've been looking at. And we would propose this to be an off-street trail along the river. And I think it would be great because it'll create that connectivity from South Laredo and to, a little bit closer to downtown Laredo. And then eventually when this is all done right here, also this off-street trail, which is the Rio Vega, you'll have access to downtown. So these are just what we're looking at right now, some connections. As I said, maybe we don't have a lot of time today to discuss it fully, but start thinking about, what we should prioritize, what should be next. I don't know if Jason's still here. Are you here, Jason? He had also mentioned one in South Laredo, especially with the baseball complex coming in.
What's up, one?
Hey,
Sorry, I was chiming in.
no,
Yeah,
I know you mentioned one in South Laredo, right? Also the connection getting to the sports complex.
correct. We've been trying to work with some of the development happening in south part of town. If you turned on that, I think build out. We're just trying to prioritize some of these off-street trails being, more significant to attract the crowd. And so some of these off-street trails
This one.
would be recommended. No, that's, go to the 20-year, sorry. I don't have it on. There you go. So we're trying to connect the baseball complex, which is going just around Lomas del Sur and Warmsor area, and trying to, facilitate that with the tremendous growth in the south and providing an off-street trail from that linked lake, possibly up towards the baseball complex. Right now, that's just in early conversations, but having this active transportation plan and the committee holds a lot more, I guess, of a voice when we're out there talking to developers and telling them the plan that we're trying to push forward and how can they incorporate that with their new subdivisions, because that's something that we would like to see, have neighborhood connections, and then you connect to a regional trail if you choose to, or if not, you can just stay in your neighborhood. And that adds, like Christina mentioned, the quality of life components that we're trying to enhance here in town and explore your community. So definitely great work going on. I think that's all I got on that one right now.
Great, thank you, Jason. I think that one we had proposed it for 20 years, but with the development that's coming in and stuff, we thought, why not speed that up to the 10-year network? But that's why this group was created to look at these things. I don't know if right now, the committee, if you have any thoughts on this, or you want to share anything in regards to this 10-year network that we're talking about. In the plan, we do have a priority table that's listed out. That was based on criteria, like looking at connectivity, safety, and things like that. But of course, also if there's available funding for certain projects that would move a certain project up. So we're looking at all that right now. But we definitely want input from the committee. I think we could probably engage over, email as well, send out some stuff and, get some feedback on that, or maybe do a survey to the committee to get some feedback as we're looking to prioritize these projects in the next few years. Did someone have a comment? All right, so we'll continue this conversation at the next meetings. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you what we're kind of thinking about in terms of prioritizing. And definitely, I think recently they mentioned there's on San Francisco, I think they striped the lanes next to Zacate Creek. I know that was a plan that had been in the works for some time. I know we talked about maybe, making sure that all the on-street projects, have some type of barrier to protect them from, vehicular traffic. I know that kind of supports the trail here at Zacate Creek. But I haven't gone out there myself to see that yet. But my understanding is that they're striping a bike lane here along the creek. But there's already a shared use path here on the creek. I don't know if someone has information on that.
Hey,
Hi, Councilwoman.
hi, Juan. I
Yes.
just have a quick question. Are
Yes.
you all working with John Porter on the River Vega bike trails?
Yeah, so I know he's working on those. They did get funding through the MPO transportation set aside funds.
Uh-huh.
So we are aware of those projects. They're the ones that are in charge of actually on the ground construction, right? So he's overseeing that. But we do have contact with him. He's been to our meetings. No, he's not here today. But yeah, he works on the implementation side, uh, and he's familiar with our plan. And we took into consideration the plans they have as well. But
Oh, great. Okay. Just
yeah,
wanted to make sure there's coordination between
yeah, yeah, there is coordination. At one of the first meetings that we had, he gave an overview of that trail that's going in, the one by the river from Ana to Laredo College. And
Mhm.
Environmental Services is one of the departments that has applied in the past for the MPO transportation set aside funds, which fund these type of projects. So we definitely do collaborate. There are certain steps that need to happen for them to be able to receive that funding as channeled through TxDOT. And we've been coordinating with him on that as well to make sure all the steps are fulfilled. Yeah, there is coordination.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Councilwoman. With that being said, we'll go on to the next item, which is pretty much our announcements. Like I said, we'll continue talking about this at the future meetings, and we'll find ways to make it more interactive and get feedback from you all to make sure that we're prioritizing the correct projects, right? Projects that are going to be utilized, projects that have funding available, and that are providing that connectivity. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to kind of combine the announcement and the open forum that we have. I know Mr. Valdazo, Fernando, had an issue he wanted to bring up, and also take advantage that Councilwoman Cigarro is here just to discuss an issue that's ongoing with a pole that was placed on a sidewalk or bike path in Northeast Laredo. So Fernando, do you want to give a little bit of background on that? And I have the pictures here. You want me to share them? I can share them.
Okay. Yeah. Can you share those pictures, please?
Yeah, let me.
I've been noticing, and this ties in to the Vision Zero. As Mr. McGee was mentioning earlier, sometimes there's the sidewalks, but we can use them. Even the city of Laredo is guilty of this because I've seen, for example, Del Mar has a huge sidewalk that people use to exercise, walk in the mornings. I see a bunch of people using it. And when they install the traffic lights on Bartlett and Delmar, they put it right in the middle of the sidewalk, which people now have to either get on Delmar, which is high traffic, high speed area, or get on the bushes to continue their path. This one right now is a path that's used the most when cyclists and people walking are crossing into either Alexander Freshman Annex or to go exercise at Del Mar bike lanes. And there's so much clear land, and obviously the utility company chose that area because probably it's more compacted, has better soil to put their pole. Complete disregard for the pedestrian use, and it's right in the middle again. So I think a possible solution for that thing to never happen again would be maybe since Ms. Cigarro is here, they can introduce a city ordinance where utility companies and even the city of Laredo cannot use sidewalks to install utility poles or traffic lights. That could be a possible solution. I don't know if Ms. Cigarro is here.
See, I think she was here, but no, we can definitely take note of that.
Okay.
So we can suggest that.
Yeah, or maybe Araceli can
Right
take
here.
notes and pass them to Marta Martinez and collaborate with Vanessa and somebody where I stopped to talk to these guys and they say, well, this was like, for us, it was the best soil. Okay. Right in the middle of the sidewalk. And as you can see, this is to cross, when you cross the loop, that's the Freshman Annex. And I know that sidewalk gets used a lot by pedestrians and cyclists alike.
Fernando, this is Danny McGee.
Yes, Mr. McGee.
That looks like a brand new pole, but who was there first? The sidewalk, the path?
Yeah,
or
the
pole?
sidewalk's been there for 15, 16 years, and that pole was installed last Thursday or last Wednesday.
Okay, coming because we do have a utility coordination group that should have taken care of this. I mean, some common sense should have been used. We have all the different departments that look over this stuff, so I'm not sure how this got through this way. I agree with you. That shouldn't be there. They could have moved it just a few feet. But
Just 1 foot, yeah, 1 foot to the right.
I don't know what, if there was a reason for it, but I'll ask the utility coordination people to see why this was done.
Okay. And can it be removed or I think a faster solution now is gonna be just to do a sidewalk, move the sidewalk.
To reroute
The sidewalk will be faster, yeah.
Right.
But hopefully this won't happen in the future if we have what's it called? A new ordinance is passed or something.
Common
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando, for bringing that up. And
Thank you.
we're trying to find out whose right of way it was. I know I reached out to TxDOT, but TxDOT's right of way is closer to the loop. I don't know if in the future it might become TxDOT right of way with that upgrade that they're doing to the loop. But I believe this is like right on the city right of way. It's right on the corner of the city's right of way, and then what would be the private property right adjacent to it. But I don't have the exact coordinates of it, so I wasn't able to figure that out. But we did want to discuss it here just in case someone had more information. So I'm glad Mr. McGee had a few comments on that. Are there any questions or other announcements? again, I wanted to mention that announcement. Mr. Perez, if you're still here, do you want to talk a little bit about that seminar that you're mentioning? And then we can send information to the group after. Right here. If you were trying to speak, you're on mute. Let me see. I'll stop sharing my screen and just go back to the. So yeah, so they're telling me they're saying they're planning to host a League of Cyclists instructor seminar. Like I had mentioned previously, they're looking for at least 8 people to join, so they can host that event here in Laredo. I think it's a really good opportunity for people to become these cyclists instructors to attend this seminar. So I'll coordinate with Mr. Perez and send out information to the committee if anyone is interested in joining. So I'll go ahead and do that. Also, I wanted to mention, I don't know who might have more information, but I know Frank from Able City probably isn't here today because he was going to be in San Antonio on a panel speaking about active transportation in San Antonio. I think Able City was invited to speak because they're a bike-friendly business in San Antonio. So that's why he was going to be up there today presenting on that. So that's great that one of our own is in San Antonio speaking about active transportation. I don't know if anyone knows a little bit more of the details on that panel, but I know he did share that with me. That's probably why he wasn't here today. So hopefully he'll be at our next meeting. I think sort of real good opportunity. And that's all the announcements that I have. Is there any other comments or anything? Any comments anyone wants to mention? Announcements?
This is Chris Kloss with TxDOT.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining.
Just to let y'all know that in case no one's noticed, is we're adding sidewalks to the Spur 400, the Clark between Arkansas and the Loop. So just to add, bring that pedestrian element up too.
That's great. Is that from Arkansas to the Loop, or?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. That's good. No, I hadn't been out there, but I'm gonna go check that out. Thank you.
There is the existing stripe bike lanes on Spur 400, and now there's going to be sidewalks adjacent to those bike lanes.
Okay, good. That's good. Yeah, that's great to get that to improve pedestrian safety in that area. So that's great. I do see a lot of people that bike through there, that are running through there. So because it connects to that Chacon Trail, that goes underneath Clark. So I think that's really good. You can provide better access to the trail. I think Orlando Navarro is here. I just wanted to welcome him. This is his first time here at the Active Transportation Committee meeting, and he's the new city planning director. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if my camera's working, but there you go. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for having me in this meeting. But I really like the collaboration of everybody. One of the items that we will be pushing and maintaining is getting with the developers, engineers, and really pushing for them to encourage the bike trails, follow the comprehensive plan, and just put in a positive light to where it's an amenity. It's an amenity for their customers that are coming into their developments, and it just makes it that much better. We've seen proof with our parks in the area. People are out there. Mr. Valdasso is correct. We've seen a big increase in people going out there. I mean, he said something about 40%. I think he's right. And so with that kind of momentum going, I think the private sector needs to realize that this is important, and yes, of course, the safety is important too, as the traffic director, Ms. McGee said, and our police chief, but as far as this office is concerned, we're going to promote it as much as possible. So I appreciate you inviting me to the meeting, and I'll be involved in more meetings. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Orlando. Right. Anything else? Regina, I did see your message in the chat box. We can talk more about that after. I don't know. You want to mention something now, or?
No, just that it's come up in different meetings and such, and especially with the River Vega, the
Yeah.
plan, the projects around that, and just like, I've seen several maps already, and I think it would be great to kind of put it all together in terms of what the health department is doing
Right.
now, and what you guys have and what's online already. So just kind of like bringing it all together.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and there should be a comprehensive one, right? And so that would be good. I think kind of what we're thinking, along with the health department, is kind of do like maybe little brochures for like each individual trails to talk about like the amenities along that trail, or maybe that can be a component of that larger comprehensive plan. But yeah, it was kind of more of a promotional thing for each trail individually, so that it wasn't necessarily comprehensive. But we'll keep that in mind, and thanks for letting us know. And do you know who's leading that other effort? You said it was CVB, or?
Well, I heard CVB mention it as something they wanted to do, and along with investing in signage in the areas,
Oh.
just for sort of like the tourist attractions in the city. And then environmental services mentioned it with the River Vega project. So I think it's just, kind of like maybe creating a task force that, everybody can have a say in the map and those amenities that they oversee.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that'll be a good comprehensive effort. Thanks for bringing that up. Is there anything else? No? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. It's about 1:15. If you haven't had lunch, you're probably hungry already. So thank you for joining us. I think we had a good meeting, good overview of Mission Zero, the health department, what they're doing in regards to active transportation. And we got to discuss, an important issue. I think that's, impacting, pedestrians and bicyclists, as you saw in that photo that we shared. So, well, thank you all for being here and taking time. So we'll see you next month. On that note, I won't be here at the next meeting. I'll be on leave, but someone from staff, I think Gracie, will be chairing that meeting. Right, Gracie? Great. So see you all next time. Thank you all for joining.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.